The information and opinions presented in this podcast are based on research done at a particular point in time. The fields of medicine, surgery, psychology, etc. are constantly evolving as new studies and movements happen. Please take into account the year of any particular episode's publication, and as new information presents itself, we will do our best to release updated episodes on the topics. Listener discretion is advised for references to medical terminology of body parts. Unless otherwise stated, no one speaking on this podcast is a medical or legal professional and cannot provide medical or legal advice. Welcome to the Trans Field Guide. So I'm going to start with thank you all for coming on the show.
Thanks for having us.
Let's go around and everybody introduce yourselves just so the listeners know who is what voice.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm Blake.
Hello, I am Shawna.
Hello, I'm Aamori.
And so, just to reiterate for the audience's sake, this recording is going to be talking about differences in social expectations before and after living as your true selves, and I will not be directly contributing to any conversation, but will only be moderating.
So one of the more interesting things that always pops up online and that a lot of people don't ever seem to understand is women really hate being told to smile. And definitely it's probably a faux pas that I did at least once when I was younger. And now that I'm on the other side of the divide, I go around my office space and I know that I'm expected to have a certain look upon my face because I can feel the energy other people give off. If I'm just walking down the hallway and I'm like resting face, I assume I've got a resting bitch face. And definitely people seem to respond to it in that manner. So there's definitely this impulse, this push that a woman, at least in my workplace, is expected to look and appear emotionally friendly, emotionally available to coworkers. And that's definitely not something that I ever experienced before I transitioned. Before, I could just have whatever damn look on my face that I wanted and people would just treat me fine.
The way that it has worked for me, that the social experience before and post is, I'm expected to basically there's a certain amount of or a category of knowledge that it's not expected for me to have. Yet I work in an automotive business, which is highly male dominated, and before there was no issues, but now there are certain customers that when they hear a female name that is working on their vehicle, they automatically get nervous. They start questioning my capabilities. They start questioning my experience, quality of work. All that just suddenly becomes questionable by just one flip of a name. And they haven't even seen me in person. They have never met me. That has been one challenge that I have tried to overcome. That it was like a difference between night and day in social experience.
Shawna, the kind of customers that your store sees, are they the sorts that already know a lot about their vehicles? Or is it just clueless people pestering you about your experience in Master?
It's a mixture of both, actually. The ones that, it's not that they know, they think they know. there's a difference between knowing and the people they think they know. Because I'm like, okay, if you know what's wrong with it, why did you bring it to me? So that's very common sense. If you know better than me, why did you bring it to me? Those people are actually very difficult to deal with because they automatically have a preconceived notion that this is what's wrong and this is what should be done to fix it. And if I come up with some other solution or some other figure out, this is not your actual problem, something else is your actual problem, then it's just a never-ending argument, and then it just becomes dismissive. It's like, you don't know. You don't know what you're talking about.
That would be very aggravating.
So, yeah, it's a challenge.
I appreciate hearing both of the experiences that you both have gone through so far. I've noticed that one way that can counter when people are dismissive is having a combination of sass, but also being direct. I think some people expect a woman to be very submissive, and I'm sure that people, when they may speak to me, maybe they don't think I know what I'm talking about. For example, my job is ad support, and there's people who are wanting to do their ad a certain way. I already understand some of their problems are because they're not doing the right thing. And so some people will instantly ask for a supervisor. And I tell them, well, I can definitely see that you're upset, but even if you want a supervisor, we still need to start somewhere. So tell me your problem, let's try to troubleshoot, and then we'll go from there. And I've learned that you sometimes have to truly interrupt people. That was one thing I really sucked at doing before I transitioned. And over the 8 years, I've learned to be more direct, but also do it with sass. Like sometimes I have to slightly embarrass people, like a man, say something to make them feel stupid, but it's not really a mean thing. And I have to find other ways to get under their skin so that they shut up and listen. It doesn't work for all of them, but being feisty, but also knowing that you're right and not taking their bluff that they know everything seems to help. Of course, there's exceptions, like you said, since you're a mechanic. Shawna, you have it even tougher, I'm sure, because you're dealing with them in person. And I can imagine that adds a different layer, though. As much as I'm trying to give a perspective, I have to acknowledge that dealing with people in person for that type of subject, which people assume men would know more about, probably does add a different layer of difficulty at the same time. So I can only imagine. But I also wonder if my experience is different because I'm a black woman, and I think some people think a black woman is supposed to be domineering, or they may think we're stupid. So I feel like I have to deal with people with a combination of sass and being direct if I think I know what I'm talking about. If I don't know what I'm talking about, I'm quite humble and I'll let someone know, well, okay, I'm here to learn. So if someone's treating me like I'm stupid, I say, well, acting that way is not really going to help me learn anything. I'm actually here to know.
Right.
Maybe didn't expect that, but tell me how I can do this properly and we'll go from there. Okay? So it's like I have to sometimes be passive aggressive and direct and let them know, look, don't dismiss me. I'm here to actually know. I've even had to do this with supervisors. It's like you have to learn how to de-escalate them and handle them, but also show you're not going to sweat. And it doesn't always work, but I think it helps. You have to kind of handle people differently on this side as a woman. Which I'm not saying that we're suddenly women. I guess it depends how you look at it, but now that we're showing that we're women, things do change to an extent.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's really the main thing that has changed about me. Well, my looks, for one, is changing, and my name has changed, but nothing else has changed. I mean, I'm still the same brain. I still have the same knowledge and experiences, but the treatment is different.
True. Yes.
So, and I understand what you said. I'm not good at being sassy. I am like very much direct to the point. Like in general, I'm not a flirtatious person in any way. I never was. Or be the one that really compliments others and all that. That's just not something comes naturally to me. So that also doesn't help.
Well,
It
it
seems
didn't
like
come
it was
naturally to me either. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up very much with my head down, being into myself and not knowing, why the hell I feel the way I do, and not understanding myself very much.
I can relate.
So I really didn't socialize. I didn't. I just stayed away from society. I stayed away from people. Definitely, if they made me uncomfortable, I chose not to deal with them. I stepped away and just hid in the closet year after year and tried to be what others told me I should be.
Well, thankfully, you're not anymore.
I'm trying. I'm trying.
It's true. It is a process.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I feel somewhat similarly because what opened the door to my transition was having my first kid. And after their birth, I was the primary caregiver hardcore. I was the one doing the 3 a.m. feedings. I was the one taking care of them, changing all the diapers, while also taking care of my spouse. And so I was doing all of this emotional labor, and it was all, rather gendered by American expectations, right? And so I'm sitting there and I'm finding myself with all of these mixed emotions about something I had stuffed in the closet, 2 decades ago. And here I am faced with it and who I was trying to be versus what I was actually engaged with doing. And I found myself at some point locked in the bathroom, crying on top of my cat, and
Aw.
I was just like falling to pieces and torn apart. And it was purely because of the gendered expectations of our society. And sometimes I wonder if things had been different, would I have felt differently, or would I have had a similar but slightly different flavored breakdown? That's expectation there is what really moved me. It moved me to say, I am happy in this role that I'm engaging with, and I feel comfortable with it, and I want to do it more, and I want to internalize this thing. And once I was able to recognize that emotion for what it really was, I could take out stuff that I had bundled up and hidden away from myself and start moving forward and transitioning, which I did real fast. I jumped in and ran. Um, so the intersection of how expectations of gender roles and behaviors is married in our society is really complex at times. And I don't know, you've got kids, Shawna. How have you felt about that? And I don't know, how about you, Aamori? Do you have children?
I have to admit, I don't. I'm going on 30 this year and I still don't have kids. I'm always very happy for people who are mothers, such as you two, other trans women who have kids. So I can't really say much on this subject.
Well, dealing with my kids, it has been very, very complicated. Very complicated. At, there are times I don't even know what to do and how to approach anything. And unfortunately, now I'm at a place where the two older ones, which one of them is, my oldest child is not biologically mine, but I raised him for the past 13 years. The two oldest one don't talk to me at all. They don't even want to acknowledge my existence. The two youngest one, I'm actually starting to make a good relationship with them. To the point that I can say, yes, I made a very lousy father, but I'm a great parent now. The fact that they can tell me they love me just means a lot.
Oh, good.
So I'm just scratching my head to figure out how I can deal with the two older ones.
They're young. It's a lot to take in. I'm kind of curious. You said that you thought you were a lousy father, but now that you're where you are now, that you're a better parent, do you think that's because of your transition, or is it things you've learned along the way? What's going on there?
I think majority of it is the fact that I don't hate myself like I used to hate myself. I hated myself so much I didn't want to exist. Every morning, every night that I went to bed, I just had one wish: to not wake up. So yes, transitioning changed that drastically. I mean, I'm far away from fully functional person, but I'm no longer a self-hating person. And I believe that made a lot of difference in I being a good parent or a decent one.
Would you say it gave you more like patience for yourself and therefore with your kids?
Oh, absolutely. It's like now I actually want to spend time with them. I just don't want to. Before it was like I wanted to take care of them for their needs, and I wanted to be left alone. Now I actually want to play with them. I want to engage them. And kids can tell. Kids can tell whether their parent is genuinely enjoying their present or they are just being taken care of because they exist and they are, the parent is supposed to take care of them. They can tell.
I want to say it's very good to hear, Shawna, that you being able to deal with yourself has allowed you more emotional availability, and you're able to be in a state of mind where you feel like playing with your children and you feel like you enjoy their company. You don't need to sequester yourself, avoiding them because you're dealing with yourself. And I admit, even though I don't have kids, I recognize how important it is to be able to be present for them and also present for yourself. That's one of the most amazing things about transitioning. Even though I don't have kids, I have the ability to be more present for the people I care about. And it was very difficult to do that at a certain point because my own hierarchy of needs wasn't being dealt with. And I'm just really happy for that. And I also want to say, Blake, it's exciting to hear how when you were taking care of your kid, um, your first child, how it started to help connect dots for you. You started realizing that you felt comfortable, you were feeling comfortable in this role, and even if you felt overwhelmed, it started to, from what I'm understanding, make you realize who you really were, or help you better accept, I should say, revisit feelings from the past. That's awesome. Um, I want to throw in something real quick. For me, the way that helped connect who I was is, so I was homeschooled for a good portion of my life from about 3 or so until 14. I actually had to ask my mom to allow my brother and me to go to public school, and it really hurt my life because my stepdad, he was the primary educator and a parent who was able to be home. It made him feel betrayed, but it gave me freedom. It helped me see what my gender role could be around other people. It let me compare myself to other people who weren't my brother or family. And if I had never done that, I'm not sure if it would have helped connect things. But that and going to college freed up time for me to think about myself and let me look how I wanted and, try makeup or experiment with different identities, see if I was a woman, genderqueer, what exactly I was. So that, along with, I have to be honest, drag, it did somewhat help me. I mean, I know that many trans women have mixed feelings about drag, and including myself, but seeing drag queens and also black women, gay men, all kinds of people handle being oppressed with sass and a quick commentary on what was happening inspired me to get quicker with my tongue and become more fearless. So that's kind of where I developed my sass. It's a combination of all of those things and watching other people and figuring out what mix could work for me. So it's definitely not something I grew up with either. It's just for survival and to feel like I could make space for myself, I had to quickly figure out these things when I was an adult. And I started transitioning when I was 19, but physically when I was 21. And I also very quickly did everything I could to transition and get into the role I was at. Um, it was weird for me though, because for a lot of my life, people were confused about my gender until I was, I would say, about 12, 13. They started to become more certain that they probably thought I was a boy. Puberty kind of starts somewhat, the little beginnings and voice deepening and other things like that. But,
Oh, yeah.
right, it hits. But people
Yeah, it hits
always,
hard.
it really hits. It hits. But I will say that it was seeing how people treated me a little different. They would always say, "Oh, you're yourself." They would never exactly say I was like other people around me. And people would ask me if I was gay. I always knew gay wasn't really the best label. I knew I was probably bi, if anything. But them associating me to something feminine helped confirm what I thought about myself. Like I would look in the mirror and I saw a girl looking back at me for many years, along with some other people. And all of that together is what helped me connect the dots and lead me to end up transitioning and feel like it was the right thing. Um, I still think about having kids though. I wonder, I wonder if I might have some. I don't know. I might have to adopt. I'm not sure if I could still produce.
I
Yeah.
certainly hope you get the chance. I
Oh,
myself am adopted here from Gladney, which is a adoption agency here in the Metroplex area.
mm,
So there's always lots of us.
hmm. That's
Yeah,
awesome. Thank you for sharing.
Well, don't give up on what your heart desires.
it's true. The science that keeps coming up in the newspaper is like uterus transplant. Like, that's awesome.
Ah,
Let's keep working on it.
yeah.
And then, of course, as people like to joke, we'll just Venmo people, our body parts, swap them around.
Yeah.
That would be
Hey, if I could
amazing.
get an ovary transplant, like put me down tomorrow. We're going for it.
Has anyone seen the genetic opera?
Oh, good grief.
Yeah. Imagine being able to rent and pay month by month for a year for ovaries. Tailored to you with perfect combination of your genome.
Well, given the price of blood tests and HRT, it might be comparable.
Yes.
So, one of the things I like to do in my office is very traditional. All of upper management is old white guys, and pretty much all of the aides are women, and almost all of the rank and file in this corporate office for medical work are women. And so I'm kind of the bottom of middle management right now. And so I'm already 5'11". I like to put on 5-inch heels and then go to my meetings.
Yes.
Get my power suit on, get my heels on, and I'll go to my meetings and I will tower over upper management. Because I don't know if they're just short by nature, if old age is just taking it out on them. One of the other. But, you know, when you have almost half a foot to a full foot in height on somebody, it gives you a lot of emotional leverage, I think.
Yeah. Especially as women, you have to take every advantage you can get sometimes.
That's the
Oh,
truth.
yes.
And,
Absolutely.
right? And that's part of why I do it, because I advocate for my team. Since I'm the lowest rung of management, I'm a team manager. So I do things to keep my team intact and healthy and productive. Essentially running interference between upper management and the team. And so I love that. I love being able to have this kind of like battle armor in my heels and defy their expectations of how I should be acting. And I don't know if upper management knows who I am, like if they know about my trans status as it were. I know they treat me in a sexist manner, so I know I'm getting some part of that.
Isn't it sad that it brings validation?
Yeah.
Oh, it's validation.
It's like, I appreciate you treating me in a very sexist way. Thank you.
Thank you for your garbage.
Yes. I mean, how else
That's
are you
what
gonna turn
that's
it positive?
Sorry, go ahead.
At least I don't know.
Look on the bright side. At least they gendered you correctly to harass
Yes.
you appropriately.
Exactly.
I'm also a tall woman like yourself, Blake. I'm 5'10". I don't currently wear heels because we have an escalator at work and we have to sometimes go upstairs. I currently work in a contact call center type place, but I am familiar with the power of height as a woman. I kind of think height kind of helps protect you a little more. I hear what short women go through, no matter if they're trans or not. And I do think men are less likely to pull their car up and literally stop you from walking on a sidewalk. Like, I don't, that's not happened to me, but I have had people try to talk to me or harass me. But I do think height protects me to a slight bit because they might think I can run away or something. But shorter women do seem to get it maybe a little worse because some men can stand over them a little easier.
Yeah, I can see that.
Would that be like people have been trying to like catcall you, or like some other kind of imposition?
Well, I guess you would have to be. I don't know if any of y'all are ever pedestrians, but I have been a pedestrian on and off for about 5 years. I do have a car currently, but I'm very familiar with riding public transit in San Antonio. And riding public transit means at times you will have to walk from one bus station to, well, not really a bus station, a bus stop to another. And in that little period in between, depending on where you're at, time of night, what people are thinking, they may want to try to talk and harass and bother you. So, as a pedestrian, I have dealt with that quite a bit. I've learned that the best way to avoid that is I wear sunglasses and I pretend I can't hear them. I mean, they don't know. Maybe I'm deaf. Maybe I'm a bitch. Let them guess whatever they want. And you have to be careful as a pedestrian too. I don't know how it is in Dallas, but I make sure to ignore most people because there are undercover police who try to profile women in general. So it's weird how, as a woman, you have to learn to be careful speaking. You already know not to speak to strangers, but you have to really be careful letting people into your space or even communicating with them. Something innocent can be taken out of context. And maybe it's exacerbated if you're black or something else, maybe, but I don't know. I just go out of my way to ignore most people And I've literally had to run across the street before. If someone was being creepy enough, if there was enough traffic, I've literally crossed the crosswalk to continue going the same direction, but prepare to cross over later to strategically avoid being harassed by someone in a vehicle. I've done it. So, yeah, it's definitely, it's different. I didn't really get attention like that. I was just a cute nerd, but like not cute enough to get people asking me out directly. And then I transition and suddenly I'm hot now. It's a weird thing. You know? Like, what? I'm hot. When was I ever hot? But it's never gone to my head. I always have the humbleness from knowing that I'm actually still a nerd, even if they don't realize it. I'm just a nerd. I'm cute, but I'm a nerd. It's okay. I'm a sassy nerd. I'll get you.
Oh yeah.
That's a page from Spider-Man. It's like, be sassy, nerd.
Oh.
No, I'm from Fort Worth, so it's really drive or nothing for me. Dallas is a little bit better with their pedestrian stuff. So I'm fortunate. I haven't had like any real firsthand experiences, but I know here a lot of people have expressed problems with the police officers, just like you've mentioned, because they'll be dressed up to go to the gay district, to go to the club, and they'll be profiled like they're working. And the Dallas PD straight out harasses them in the middle of the club district as if they're there to pick up. And, people are just out to have a good time. And it's ridiculous.
That's so spot on what you just said. Especially even in San Antonio, when I go to a queer area, I'm even more conscious to continue to do the same thing, which is ignore strange people in cars because police will definitely profile. I've never been picked up by police, but I do have friends who have literally had a police officer try to accuse them of working. And I have nothing against people doing sex work. People have to do what they have to do. It's sad that that's such a priority for sometimes many times people willingly doing something. It's not saying that in a better system they would have to do sex work, but for those who do it and are not being coerced or pimped into it, fully grown women, they have the right to do what they want. But in gay areas, I feel the pressure to not wear heels. I actually don't wear high heels anymore most of the time when I go places because it's a symbol that I think someone could use to profile me as being a sex worker. I actually go out of my way to wear cute, flat footwear, tennis shoes, sandals, whatever. And I also do that because it, it's just, I'm trying to avoid attention and blend in. I'm already tall, and I think I stand out in San Antonio. I mean, I'm black. I have long curly hair. I mean, it's different. I do see people who look like that, but not as much down here. So even in the gay districts, I try to tone myself down. It's sad. I've toned myself down so much. I actually love to be sparkly. I love makeup. I love things like that. But I actually don't even wear makeup anymore. I usually just go out barefaced, look natural, wear some nice clothes, maybe wear a little bit of cleavage. I found the right look that works for me to be treated nicely most of the time, but not harassed. And I want to shake it up and do something different sometimes, but I will only do that at nighttime and if I have a ride. Like if I'm driving my own car or if I didn't have my car, Uber, Lyft with friends, I'm always thinking about dressing in a way to avoid harassment and problems. And it's so weird how, I mean, it's not like I want to focus on those things. It's just, it would seem foolish in my situation not to because of harassment and other things that can go along with it, you know?
It's true. It seems like it's butting up against the expectations of, you know, being a woman out on a night versus the horrific societal expectations of what it is to be a trans person.
Yeah, it clashes sometimes.
I don't have much input on this. I mean, I hardly ever go out, hardly ever go anywhere, and
You're a homebody. It's okay.
yeah, I just stay home. And I have a hard time wearing heels. I got damaged discs in my back. I can't walk when I wear them.
Okay.
To wear that.
Speaking of the intersection of expectations and cultural events, I was out with my boyfriend at the Japanese Gardens here in Fort Worth. And my boyfriend is non-binary, feminine leaning, and when we go out, we're usually I would argue visibly queer. Like no matter how much I downplay it, I'm sure I give off a lot of queer vibes just in general, just because of how I am. And so we come off as some sort of feminine queer couple. And sometimes people will stop us. And my boyfriend is a bit more flamboyant than me. They have colored hair and, they wear a bit more risque style of clothing. And people will stop us and specifically stop them and say, "Oh my gosh, I love your style." Which, as far as we're concerned, essentially is, "I figured you out. You're not normal."
Oh.
And it's not breaking our hearts or anything. It's just like, "Oh, great. Thanks for the compliments." Because we're not meeting an expectation, we're doing the opposite. Specifically, they're doing the opposite. They're breaking the mold and having too much color. They're too much fun for, hetero-cis normativity, which I think is an interesting thing. If you step outside a little bit too strongly, and as far as I'm concerned, they pass flawlessly when they're actually presenting feminine. And for people to just kind of interrupt the groove of whatever we're doing with that, it's just so surreal. Like, I can't imagine just going up to some cis woman and just harping on her about her new sundress or something, and like using coded language to describe her and not just her dress. Like, yeah, I will stop a woman and be like, "Bitch, your sundress looks amazing. Where can I get that?" But it's not secret language.
Okay, so I was born in Iran, a very much well-known Islamic country with a highly conservative government, a place that having a LGBTQ status is a death sentence automatically. So growing up, I actually never had the opportunity to express myself. I had taken some attempts, so I'm not gonna bring up details, but it wasn't acceptable. It wasn't something that you would do unless you had a death wish. That was like part of the reason I grew up very close, very in the closet, and avoided all kinds of social interactions. When I came to the States, I had a mindset of there is something wrong with all the non-binary people because that's the way I grew up. That's what I was taught, that these people, there's something wrong with them, they're not right. It took me a lot of years of looking at reality of things and looking within myself and looking at others who are non-binary in every way possible to come in terms, and I understand that people should be loved for people, not for their labels. And that might sound silly, but for me, coming from that environment was a major step that I needed towards self-acceptance. Because without it, I would have never been able to not just accept, even attempt to love myself in any way.
I'm glad that you have more freedom and feel more able to be who you are the way that you see fit.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, my situation is kind of normal, but also not at the same time. I had my name changed to an African last name when I was 6, but when I was 4, we started being called uh, I don't know if I should say it on a podcast, but I'll just say that we have a Nigerian last name. And the reason why we ended up changing our names legally was a combination of figuring out who we were as Black, or I say Black mixed because we're not just African, we're African. We have European blood and probably some Native blood, but still Black enough to be Black, according to what Black is. It's a whole thing talking about what is identity, what is race, da da da. Race isn't real, we're all humans. But anyway, so I've had a different name for a long time, and people have assumed that I wasn't born in North America, or they have this assumption of me. I've had people ask me, am I from the Caribbean? I think some people have wondered, are you part Asian? Why do you have that last name? What's your deal? So that, along with, as I mentioned, being homeschooled, kind of put me into a different position. I didn't go into life thinking about people from other places in the world as different than me because I already felt different. I knew I was born in North America. I knew I was a Black. I knew that. But I was taught to know about where I could possibly come from. And I saw people as unique people who all have their own history, whether they acknowledge that history or not. So that right there also, I think, exposed me to see different gender norms. I got to learn how there were men in Africa, men in Asia, men in the Middle East. Men in a lot of places at one point didn't necessarily have to wear pants. Some men wore wraps around their waist, sarongs, or sarongs, loincloths. Some men even wore dresses by what we would consider a dress. If you strip gender from it, a lot of men in the world wear dresses and do things that many men in North America would find strange, but it's completely normal. And that made me realize gender was partially context. I saw the hypocrisy of how I was expected to wear pants, to wear a suit, to do things a certain way because I lived here. But some of my possible ancestors, whether they're from Africa, whether they're from uh, North America, whether they're from Europe, may have worn things and done things that would have seemed strange now. And so that kind of made me think different, but I still wasn't brave enough to actually act on what I thought until I started processing that I may not necessarily be straight. I kind of knew I wasn't straight. I knew, but I didn't really want to talk about it. I didn't know if I was gay. I didn't know if I was bi. I knew I felt womanly, but I didn't think I could do anything about that. So at the very minimum, I thought maybe I was a gay or bi man. So when I was about 18, 19, I started to wear more colors. I started to not restrict myself to only wearing t-shirts, black, navy, uh, navy, blue. I let myself wear purples, pinks, a little bit of color thrown into my clothes. And I thought to myself, well, there's men out here from different places who are looking however they want that people don't know where I'm from. I could be from anywhere in the world. Why should I care so much? So I started thinking of it like that. And then as I kept learning more about what it meant to be gay, what it meant to be bi, eventually I started learning about what it meant to be trans. And it kind of put a word to some of my feelings that I wasn't dealing with. I took a gender studies class, typical, I took that when I was in college. And by that time, I was actually literally going to class wearing foundation, eyeliner, mascara. I was making sure to shave all the time. I was wearing sometimes women's clothes, even though I think clothes have no gender, but they're cut in a way that would be typical for an AFAB, assigned female at birth person's body. I was doing that and mixing it with my clothes. And I was publicly going to my art classes, my sociology classes, biology, whatever the hell I was taking at that point as myself. And I would go home to visit family and I would still be doing that. I started thinking to myself, maybe it doesn't matter so much. I mean, I was homeschooled for crying out loud. I never really had a chance to connect with a lot of people for many, many years, apart from my brother, who honestly I don't have a good relationship anymore. I have a stepbrother too. His name's, well, I'm not gonna say his name, but I have a stepbrother, and his mom is from Taiwan. Oh, well, she's not from Taiwan, from my knowledge. Her parents are from Taiwan, but she's North American, born from people who are Taiwanese immigrants. That's how I should explain it. So my stepdad and her had my older brother. He's accepting of me. But anyways, going back to what I'm saying, um, I started to allow myself to be who I was, and I thought to myself, there's a whole world out here. What an individual person thinks about me really doesn't matter. They don't know my life experiences. I learned what it meant to be intersex. I thought to myself, hey, they may not know intersex people exist. Maybe I'm intersex. Who knows? They don't know what I really am. They think they know. But maybe I have to stop investing as much in other people's opinions of me. And I still struggle with that sometimes. It's hard to transition and claim yourself as a woman without, to some extent, worrying about people's opinion. To a slight extent, you want to be treated well. You want to, if you're comfortable, go to the women's bathroom. You want to have those normal everyday interactions go smoothly if you're feeling like that's something you want to do. I know not all trans women may necessarily want to do that. There's all kinds of experiences. But just my upbringing was very strange. Um, I was I was encouraged to wear boys' clothes. I was encouraged to say I was a man, but my family would turn a blind eye to when people would question my gender. They just say, "Oh, that's my son." That too. Other people are like a other people can teach you so much, and other people can be a mirror sometimes for who we are. If I hadn't listened to what other people thought when they interacted with me, I kind of don't know if that would have helped me connect the dots either. I thought to myself, I've been dealing with this my whole life. Might as well do something about it. And I really think that transitioning is my first true investment in myself. I wasn't very good to myself when it came to my emotions, and that was really the part that I was not good at. But transitioning allowed me to be better towards myself and allowed me to be even better towards other people, but know to not constantly always be there either for others. I have to find a balance between me and what they need. And there's more I could say, but maybe I'll come back to that later. I don't know how long I'm going to record. Just wanted to share that.
Thank you.
Hmm.
I like what you said about having to manage expectations and letting yourself off the hook and, you know, not comparing yourself to what other people think about yourself. But also, um, you mentioned that you weren't good to yourself emotionally, or I don't know quite what you mean, like in feeling your emotions, processing them. Um, but it reminds me a bit of how I was when I was in the closet. I came from a very liberal, happy, easy-go-lucky family life where it was cool. We had an aunt that was a lesbian, and we had no issues, with any of those kinds of bigotries, except that when I started to make headway with myself back in high school, my dad spoke to me on a car ride, and essentially it boiled down to, well, it's great that, my sister, or his sister, my aunt, was a lesbian, but, our family, that's that's just not gonna happen. There's no one gay in our family.
Mm.
And I was like, great, great, I'll take that under advisement. Um, so I spent the next decade pretty much as a robot.
Oh.
Um, I didn't really let myself feel a whole lot of things. I did exactly what you said. I took other people's expectations and let them rule and guide my life.
Mm.
Uh,
Yeah.
you know, that American script for what does it mean to be a man and what does it mean to progress socially and your stages of life and all of that. You know, okay, you bought the car, you went to college, you got the degree, you started a job, you found a woman, you got married, you had kids, you bought a house, da 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 da. So I followed all of that script while acting like a robot. I don't know how the hell my wife and I fell in love the way we did, considering my emotional unavailability, but that's astounding. Um, and, I made it to the closet door, walked through, and all of a sudden, I'm managing my own expectations of myself. And that's a weird place to be when you've kind of relinquished control for so long.
You're right.
And
Yeah.
I think probably all three of us probably feel similarly that, we're making our own headway and picking and choosing what matters and values to us. And it's really frightening because I feel like other people have a decade or 2 decades of experience with that that I don't
Yeah.
have.
Yeah, and it makes you feel like you're fresh off the boat.
Yes.
Okay, now what? I'm
true.
lost.
It's true. You're in a brave new place, and you're just like, all right, well, I got to learn the language here.
Yes.
I think you nailed it. To continue on that, I mean, she was dead on. It's like now I have to be responsible for my own emotions, my own likes and dislikes, and I'm lost. I have no idea what to do, where to start, or I no longer know myself, you know? It's a very, very refreshing yet frightening place to be. That, it's very much like pushing a reset button. Starting over.
It gets better. I kind of feel like as I approach a decade, I'm feeling like I am more fully baked. I'm like a pot or a piece of pottery that was created in a kiln from clay. And then I have chosen my own form, and then I have solidified myself. And I'm open to being a piece of pottery that's etched and changed, varnished. I'm using these different descriptions, different metaphors to describe how in life you figure out different things you're interested in. You may have different jobs. You could figure out something different about your sexuality. You have kids, you don't have kids, all these different paths. And I say for me, before I transition, I may have appeared like I was baked, as in like set a certain way, but I was still like a newly formed planet. I'm just gonna say that. You know how the Earth used to have magma and used to have
Yeah.
tectonic. Well, we still have tectonic activity, but the Earth was more. It was different. The land looked different. It was more newly formed, and transitioning has allowed me to kind of melt my tectonic plates and put everything back together and change the landscape again. It really does feel like a reset. And I kind of think it has allowed me to feel somewhat more forgiving of myself. I'm realizing there's a lot of cis people who, even though they may have had a head start with going the direction that's right for their gender, there's still a lot of things they're figuring out about themselves as well. And sometimes some of them even seem behind me in processing some of knowing who they are, what they want. So, I mean, I may not have kids, I may not have the house. I have an apartment, but I have made a lot of headway with my emotions, my psyche, my trauma, and there's even a lot of cis people who may seem to have what a lot of us desire, who still haven't made any headway with their own issues with their psyche, issues with their emotions. There's so many parts that make life easier to live and make it more enjoyable. that even they have not figured out. And I'm realizing as time goes on, I felt silly for feeling inferior. I'm not. We're not inferior to them. If anything, they can learn a lot from us. I'm not saying we're necessarily superior to cis people. Not quite saying that, but I think that take that how you will. But I think they could learn a lot from us.
That it opens up a lot of doors, especially to find yourself, experiment with things. I don't know. It can be both nerve-wracking and also a blessing.
Yes.
The unknown is always super scary.
You know, Star Trek prepared me though,
Then you do things that you're like, ugh, I can't believe I did that.
I don't know. I look at things I did in the past and I say that. Not
Yeah.
the future. Not the current.
Like one thing for me is like I purposely avoid dressing really feminine, mainly because I don't know how exactly to describe it. I don't want to look in the mirror and see a man in a dress. That's why I can put it.
So can I try and reword it? So because you feel like you can't live up to that image, you don't want to make the attempt?
Because it hurts me.
Yeah. I get that.
Yeah. I try it and I'm like, no. It doesn't click. It doesn't settle on me. It's like, no, too soon. No. It takes me back to a self-hating place.
Mm.
That's why I can say it. And I want to avoid that. I don't want to do it. So I'm like, you know what? Just I'm comfortable not wearing a dress because as much as I want to wear one, I have a lot to go to get to that place. So it's like, yeah, there's a lot of room for experiment, a lot of room for just starting over, finding yourself again. But there's like this kind of backlashes, if you will. You realize, yeah, I'm not there yet.
Big emotional boundary.
I'm not sure if this would explain or help me relate to what you're thinking when you said how you felt about presenting yourself in a dress, Shauna, but maybe you feel hesitant to do that because you may have once clung very strongly to presenting as a man, and the idea of people noticing you and it being negative, it can be very triggering. You mentioned how it was a literal death sentence if you would have acted on that in your youth. And that, yeah, you mentioned that it was traumatizing. And that can be very difficult for a trans woman who have clung very strongly to that identity in the past. Um, I don't know if my words can give any help. I admit that I did also, of course, live as a man for a brief period of time, but it can be really hard to let go of that. I admit when I started wearing makeup publicly and changing up my gender presentation, it was before I had necessarily called myself a woman. So I kind of went through that phase of people not being sure what to call me. It reminded me of being a child again and that androgynous in between, but also like, are you a girl or are you a boy? I kind of shook it up and allowed myself to go through that as an adult. And it was weird. There were people who would be gawking at me strangely. I'd have teenagers follow me in the mall. I've been definitely made fun of, but I looked at it like I felt joy in presenting womanly, and I saw what could be ahead at the tunnel for me. I saw that I may not necessarily look the way I currently do continuously. And even if I did, oh well. I mean, if I'm happy, there must be a way to figure things out. But that right there got me used to knowing that it was not always going to be easy. And it can be difficult if you have not allowed yourself to go public and before everything about your body looks the way you want, to allow yourself to go through that. I'm not saying you should. I'm just saying that I found it strangely beneficial. Like it helped build the armor that I needed going forward. And it also meant that I was already figuring out how I was wanting to present when I did start hormones and start going through my changes and I got my laser. I was already figuring out maybe what I wanted to do and figuring out the best way for me to get the look that I wanted to feel comfortable. I'm not saying that it's like an easy thing. This is coming from me. I have student loans. I don't have kids, but I have student loans, and it's like I have an invisible child that I can't even love. It's always around. So I can relate to having to, I don't know what your financial situation is, but it's been difficult, but it's been worthwhile giving myself that permission to do that. And I hope that you can allow yourself that permission, even if you may have overcompensated before. You deserve that permission to present how you want. And it helps to also find women that look like you. Like, cis women look so many different ways. A lot of times we have this ideal in our head, but in reality, women come in so many forms and fashions. Not even just counting trans women. Women as a whole looks so many ways, sound different ways, dress different ways, have different interests. Coming to find what type of woman you feel that you are or who you may currently see that you are similar to may help you feel better. It may help you give more permission to look the way that you want or try different things to present yourself the way that you want.
Yeah, that's something I need to work on myself.
It's okay. You got time.
It's true.
There is one statement I can make for sure. It didn't matter how much testosterone I injected, it didn't take the woman out of me.
Yes.
It didn't matter.
I think that's a really like affirmative thing to hear.
Mm-hmm.
So if anyone has ever this idea that, oh, it's a hormonal imbalance, I'm gonna just get on testosterone shot and I'll be all manly, it's like I can't tell them nobody. Nope.
This isn't quite the same, but I did make an effort to build up my body. I was trying to get a lot more muscular before I transitioned. So at first I regretted it, but I'm realizing as time has gone on, women to be healthy also need muscle. So a lot of trans women come into these very unhealthy ideas of what a woman's body is like. And in reality, a healthy woman is supposed to have muscle as
Mm.
well. We don't have to be frail. We don't have to be always curvy. We can look so many different ways. We can be an athletic woman. I love exercise. Like I'm currently making sure that my neck is okay. Like I kind of hurt my body a little bit recently, but I've been learning how to properly lift weights and get more into fitness. And I've always sort of been connected to fitness, but I was trying to fit into looking a certain way, and I didn't realize that exercise could actually aid me in what I wanted. And I actually mean building muscle. Building muscle can help build a shape that you're wanting. You can build stronger legs, it can strengthen your core. Different things that people may think of in a negative way can actually help your body look more feminine as time goes on. It sounds counterintuitive, but it's a healthy thing. And a lot of trans women really think that you have to avoid doing anything like that. Some trans women, not all, I'm not one of those really, but people may assume because I come across as quite feminine if you meet me in person, like but in reality I'm actually pretty centered in my masculine and feminine sides of myself. Just my look makes people dismiss the idea that I might exercise or know anything about taking care of myself in that way. People think I'm probably about shopping, fashion, da da da. But I'm a caring, deep, insightful person who's flawed like anyone else. Tooting my own horn. Anyway, so yeah, exercise, weightlifting for the lower body, it can actually help change how our bodies look. And I just wanted to mention going forward, things that may be unexpected that may make you feel good about yourself that could help change your body. And everything's not about surgery. So many trans women I know want to run and talk about surgery being the only option. I understand there are things that surgery can change that exercise cannot change. I get that. But I just want trans women to be armed with any healthy, self-affirming thing that can help you be healthier, have the body that you want, present the way that you want.
Well, I mean, I totally believe what you're saying. I have seen two trans women that they claim they didn't have any cosmetic surgeries, yet their body was hourglass shaped and so feminine to the point that, you know, just like a cis woman.
Mm-hmm.
And they said it was all HRT and exercise
Mm-hmm.
to let the body redistribute all the fat under your skin and just rebuild itself. So
It is possible
yeah.
to get a more hourglass figure that way. I'm still not a total hourglass, I'll say that. But I'm working on trying to get my lower body more curved.
I don't have much to add at the moment. It was really nice to meet you, Aamori, and it's always nice to see you again, Shawna.
Oh, same here. Thank you.
Nice to meet y'all too. Hopefully meet y'all both in person one day, Blake and Shawna.
Like this episode? Tell someone about it. Have any questions or concerns? Please feel free to send an email to transfieldguide@gmail.com. Also be sure to subscribe to keep up with the latest episodes. Stay safe, and remember, I'm proud of you.